So I have a question for you.
Really? We just start right out of the gate like that? Okay.
So do you think love is a spiritual test? And if you need any further explanation on that, I could give it to you.
Well, I think we can view it as a spiritual test. I think love is many things, but looking at it as a spiritual test for the person who's doing the loving.
Well, kind of like,
Or do you mean the relationship is a spiritual test?
yeah, I think the relationship kind of. So I would say, like, I have a friend, for instance, who is in a relationship and it's not a great relationship. And he's currently not with this person. But he told me at one point that he felt like the relationship, even though it contained physical and emotional abuse, that it was like a test by God or Jesus, and that is kind of keeping him in the relationship, like that sort of thing. And I've heard that in other people too. They said like, well, our relationship has all these problems, but it's part of my spiritual growth, or part of like, it's part of my journey. Like, so is that like a real thing?
I mean, everybody watching us talk about this is going to be able to say, well, yeah, in some ways it really could be. My fear would be that it'd be something that we might tell ourselves to perpetuate an otherwise absolutely unsustainable relationship. Because now we've dressed it up as part of a spiritual journey, and I've just got to slog through this thing because there are all these spiritual goodies waiting for me. Maturity, a more loving spirit, greater compassion. And instead, if I could be a contrary voice, I would have to say that although it is obviously true in many ways, I think referring to a dysfunctional, abusive relationship as part of my spiritual journey is really implementing an irrational belief that I could summarize as validation through pain. That my staying in this relationship is good because it brings pain. My love is true because I've gone through pain to get here. I have suffered greatly, and that's how I know it's real. It takes many forms, right? And movies and books often, promote this kind of thinking. And a book I particularly hate, and I'm going to say, sorry, ladies, but I knew a woman who encouraged me to read Wuthering Heights.
And this is someone you were dating?
Nope. Nope. She was married to another man. They're happily married, but she was just, really, it's my favorite book, she said. So I began reading the book because, it's on the list of very famous books, and it's nice to be in the know on literature. And so I thought, okay, yeah, I've got nothing else on my to-do list. I'm going to read this book. Well, every page with every character involved abuse. And she loved the book because it was just so romantic.
Okay.
And the entire novel seemed to be an exponent of this idea your friend had, that of validation through pain. That, it was so difficult to get this relationship off the ground, but here we are, we're flying along, and yes, the engine is backfiring every once in a while, and we're not really good with the turbulence in the air, and every once in a while the bottom drops out and we drop 100 feet, as we're making our way to the next airport. But damn it, it's worth it. It's part of our spiritual journey. And I just, as a metaphor, to be in an abusive relationship as part of my spiritual journey, and then using that thinking to justify staying in the relationship, that I don't like. What I do like, and what I think would make sense for the people watching us have this conversation, is I just think every relationship is part of my spiritual journey. Because every relationship is the product of choices that I have made. And sometimes those choices were incredibly well informed and wise and the best decision I ever made. But quite often my decision making, my choices in life reflect a lack of wisdom, some naivete that is pathological at that level. And one of the terrible decisions I think anybody could make is to think being in an abusive relationship, well, that isn't a deal breaker. I mean, it still has a shot, right? And I would say, no, it really doesn't. Because before we can get to a good relationship, we must first have a safe relationship. And I don't think most people embrace that way of thinking, that if you can't be safe under the same roof with another person, and you're going to close your eyes and lie down and go to sleep next to them, that's insane. That is not, you might as well, advise women to be dating Kim Jong Un, from North Korea, and say, well, it's part of your spiritual journey. Or Hannibal Lecter, it's part of your spiritual journey, except, oh, your boyfriend isn't famous, or your girlfriend isn't famous. And yeah, but it's the same thing. It's terrifying. So, and well, it's not that bad. It's not like they hit me or anything. Oh, just emotional abuse? Is that all? You big baby? No, emotional abuse is horrible. Research indicates that children, when they grow older, who've experienced both physical abuse and emotional abuse, they remember the emotional abuse as far more damaging. And it leaves a hangover into their adult life that is far more difficult to deal with than even the physical abuse. So none of it should be minimized. All of it is significant. And yeah, if for example, you're one of those people who can't seem to ever have an abuse-free relationship, that's part of your spiritual journey. You might want to check that one out. Like, why do I do that? But it's also true that, and I don't want to put it all on the other person, because I don't know your friend. You've never mentioned his name, but I would bet you $1,000 he's part of the abusive exchange, that he gives as well as he gets. Calling her names, putting her down, yelling at her, that guilt tripping her, that kind of thing.
I don't think he does it to the extent that she does, but he also, I feel like, instigates her sometimes.
Okay. But part of it, and he also is the guy who picked her.
Yes.
So all of that behavior, the picking and the abuse to whatever level that he dishes out, all of that is about him. And all of those things about him, his behavior and his relationship history, is really part of his spiritual journey. But it's there to freaking learn from, not to wallow in and say, oh, this is really bringing me closer to God. Or it's experiences like this that really opened my mind to the deeper meaning of life. No, it doesn't. It opens your mind. It's like saying getting punched in the face every morning really is helpful in terms of spiritual growth. So I guess the end result of what I'm saying is one really can't use abuse to justify staying in a relationship because, oh, well, it's part of my spiritual growth. It may be, but that's usually after you've digested the experience in a critical incident debriefing. And you've figured out, oh, wow, boy, did I have some irrational beliefs. I didn't think I was lovable. And that's why it made sense to me to be with an abusive so-and-so and to stay in that abusive relationship because I never felt like I really deserved love. And then you hear Stephen Ing saying from the audience, well, you don't deserve love, but that doesn't mean you deserve abuse.
So that whole thing, like some people could be in that for 6 months, some people could be that for a year, some people could be in that for 10 years.
Lifetime.
It could be a lifetime. So it's all dependent on, some people may never grow to get to that next level then.
Yeah, and I guess that's an important observation that, and that's kind of the cruelty of my therapy with people is pointing out that there is surely some amazing lesson that they're supposed to learn, some spiritual lesson people in abusive relationships are supposed to learn.
Yeah.
But you just haven't learned it yet, I would tell my client. And then she or he or they would say, well, what do you mean? Well, you're still putting up with abuse. And that's never going to be sustainable. It's never going to feel like love. It's never going to be right until the abuse stops and you have a chance to develop a truly loving relationship. Because when we talk about love, we're talking about someone who has a positive regard for you, and romantically, they are over the moon. They just adore you. We even use that kind of religious language like adoration of the Magi. He adores her, she adores him. And is there any room in that concept of love for intermittent torture? Well, no, that is not what we mean by love. So, well, what if it's just verbal torture? What if it's just verbal abuse or emotional abuse? Well, does that sound like love to you? Does that feel like love to you? Well, and here's the next line of defense. Well, every couple argues.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Yes, but not every couple who argues does it in an abusive way. We can disagree with each other and argue about, well, are we taking a vacation to California this year? Or are we going to Europe? Can we afford to take a vacation at all? We could argue about all those questions, but we don't have to get to where we're calling each other names, yelling, accusing each other of being cheap. How you never want to go anywhere, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So in a way, what's funny is this book, Wuthering Heights, that I was talking about earlier, so engaging to my friend. And she just loved how romantic it was, as if the book were about overcoming all things. And yes, because our love is true because we have suffered so much to get where we are.
And you don't believe that?
No. I'm willing to let others believe that if that's what they need to believe. But I think it would be more helpful to believe, oh, I thought I was going to be with someone who loved me, but I was wrong because this is not loving behavior. They may think it comes out of passion, but it's actually just abuse. And I think what's important for those of us who get this is to remember that experiencing abuse is ultimately terrifying in the moment, maybe, but ultimately it's so very boring, which is why, I'm sorry to say this to the audience, but I find Wuthering Heights an incredibly boring book. It's like the life story of daily abusive drinkers. That's a boring story.
Just because it's so you could see what's happening ahead of time, and it's just
it's so repetitious, and the level of impairment means, oh, you're not able to be loving. And because you're not able to be loving, you're not able to take advantage of that loving, stable platform life could offer you to transcend this world's day-to-day existence and see what is truly beautiful and rich and lovely beyond that level. Because if you're getting abused on the regular, you're not going to like it. And if you're getting what you don't like, what you're dreaming of is getting a relationship that is loving, that is respectful. And where, yes, you can argue, but you can argue with respect and with dignity. And I've had people in my office when I do, for example, a men's group, and somebody will speak up and say, well, it just sounds like you don't even really love her then. If you're not willing to, work through the abuse.
Yeah.
Work through the abuse? I confronted her. She wouldn't commit to an abuse-free relationship or lifestyle. or she did make a commitment, but she was incapable of keeping that commitment, there's not a lot to work through, except that you're able to tolerate it. Imagine if working through it included daily beatings, or she broke a whiskey bottle over your head every day. Well, you just got to work through it. Yeah. No, I don't think I do have to work through that. I think I need to get away. I need to escape. And it's just the lack of lethality that makes somebody say, well, I think we could work through it. No, I don't really think you can work through that. It might change. And of course, I would love to see it change for anybody suffering abuse. But what would be the motive for changing? Because actually, abusive behavior is not about love. It's about power and control. And the person or persons who are being abusive are trying to control the other person. And that isn't love. Controlling behavior has nothing to do with love. So if you give in and you bow your head meekly and take the abuse and go forward, or you put up the resistance of being abusive in a like manner, but not as severe as her abuse, well, yeah, she might stick around or he might stick around, but that's because they're kind of getting what they wanted. If you cave in, that's what they were seeking with power and control. They wanted things to be their way. Okay, but what about me and having things be our way, a way that we could both live with and feel comfortable with? Well, love isn't like that. You don't always get what you want. Which is crazy because romance is an elective procedure. It's like a nose job. It's an elective procedure. You don't have to live with this person. You don't have to be in this relationship. We could argue my parents will always be my parents. I will always be their child. The same with my children or my brothers, because those are biological relationships. But if my brother even were abusive and he never got over it, would I be inviting him to stay at my place, inviting him into my family's home? Would I be entrusting him to watch over his nephews and nieces? No, I don't think I would. I might even still love him, but I could love him from afar, as a brother. And I think, I've said playfully on this podcast that for me, women are a lot like dogs in that, which sounds horrible, but women are a lot like dogs in that I love all dogs, but I can only live with a few because I have my limitations as a human being. And some dogs are adorable and cute, but I find them irritating over in terms of living with them. Maybe a dog that sheds. I'm not into dogs that shed. And so something simple like that. Well, I'm not proud of that. It just happens to be a fact I accept about myself, that I have my limits, right? And when it comes to abuse, my limit is anything over 0. I need 0 abuse.
So what if we take away the abuse and just have a relationship that's challenging or that's unfulfilling or feel like they're not getting what they want out of it? So would you say
devious. I see where you're going with that.
Would you say, so then that's a little level down, but they're just waiting for their partner to come to a realization or change, or one day it's going to happen. So it's not abusive, but there's unfulfilled, people aren't fulfilled necessarily.
Yeah, it's not what I need. My partner, for example, perhaps I just never noticed that they didn't say, I love you. And then after 5 years of marriage, I realized, hey, wait a minute. They never say they love me. How come you don't say you love me? I'm just not comfortable with that. Okay, but do you love me? I said, I'm not comfortable with that. Well, that would bother me. I think, it would bother me that I was so slow on the uptake too. That'd be something for me to ruminate on later. But if I'm looking for, again, it's supposed to be an elective procedure. who would volunteer for a relationship where they're not getting their needs met? Who would volunteer for a relationship characterized by no abuse, but profound neglect?
But what if they're getting some of those needs met, but then there's some that are not met, but then they're just like, well, those, it's just because where the person's at, or they're going to get there one day.
Maybe.
Like, yeah, it's like, would you say that? And they're like, we are in love. Like I heard one example. So somebody's like, they're in love, everything's going great, but there's some sort of like incompatibility sexually, for instance. And
well, I love her, but she's fiscally irresponsible and gambles away all my income.
mm-hmm. And would that be
a deal breaker? Well, it would be for me. Because it's unsustainable. You know, we all have our limits. And if we don't know what our limits are,
mm-hmm.
then we really don't know where we would draw that line.
Mm-hmm.
We have to experience it and experience it and experience it until 10 years later we come up gasping for air. Or, sadly, people end up behaving badly after years of being married. They have an affair.
Mm-hmm.
Because why were they vulnerable to having affairs? Well, because they felt utterly unloved.
Mm-hmm.
or their sex life was utterly unfulfilling. But they were just waiting and waiting and waiting because there was always hope.
Yeah.
And perhaps even family members or religious mentors had encouraged them to be patient.
Mm-hmm.
Because sooner or later, he or she is going to come around.
Yeah.
But again, we all have our limits. And if you don't know, how do you know what your limits are until they get surpassed and now you've behaved badly?
Yeah.
That's really hard for people. So, you know, I believe if one makes a commitment to a monogamous committed relationship, one ought not to have affairs, right? But what if one is tempted regularly and thinking about affairs and falling in love with others on the regular?
Yeah.
I would say that's a kind of a heads up that maybe you're not getting your needs met.
Yeah.
And what if you don't exactly nag, but you're passively aggressive with some of your partner's habits that really bother you, and this life together is bringing out the worst of you? And what if you're just not happy regularly? You do pretty well at work, let's say, or you love your children, but there's kind of an empty place where you think, when you think about your mate. I would say that's a warning sign that, hey, this isn't really working for me. Now, what do you do about that? You know, in your spiritual journey, I mean, part of the spiritual journey is by definition is we don't know where we're going.
Yeah, you kind of got to let go and let the love kind of help, you know, kind of carry it through.
That's not where I was going with that.
No. Okay.
Because for me, love is a virtue and love is a wonderful feeling to have, but so is courage. And sometimes in my spiritual journey, the message is not stay with your abusive lover. Sometimes the message is, could you grow some backbone and learn how to stand up for yourself?
And saying, like, expressing your needs or expressing
that this isn't working for me. I can't stand living like this.
Is that so rather than just be like, not say that and be like, it's a spiritual thing, you would say you have to say the thing that's causing the pain, whatever it may be, whether it's the abuse, whether it's feeling lonely, whether it's an incompatibility.
Yeah, well, we have, all of us, you know, I hear vague claims of values, and that doesn't conform to my values, or we believe in family values, but each of us in life could list the things, the virtues we find valuable. Friendship would be one of my top values. What if I'm with someone who's so jealous and controlling, they make it miserable for me to try to have friends?
Part of the journey.
Yeah, that's part of the journey, all right. So, and the journey is I was a big stupid idiot in picking them, and that I need to get over myself and make it okay to have made a mistake. But part of my journey is also learning how to be courageous. And that might involve my confronting the other person or a willingness to stand up for myself and say, I can't live like this anymore. It's time for us to go our separate ways. That's also part of the journey. So those of us who are divorced, it's not like, well, we're spiritual failures. We flunked out of the spiritual journey.
I like that. Spiritual failures.
Right? But the truth is, we've all failed in many ways. And even those of us who've had a divorce or two or three under our belt, it's not like we're worthless as spiritual beings. We are still learning and we are still on our journey as long as we are alive, right?
Yeah. Well, you had your first one, and then you learned a lot from that first spiritual journey.
My first marriage? Yeah, I sure did.
And then you had another journey of dating where you learned a lot more there. And then eventually you kept burning off the beliefs that were holding you back, it sounds like. I don't know if that's...
I know it's because I'm such a spiritual, enlightened person and genius, really, when you think, no, it was like...
Well, you were trying to get to a place with love and relationships where your idea surpassed society's view on them.
That's very kind of you to say. I wonder if more, I was just really needy for when it comes to love. And I wanted a certain kind of love. I wanted to be significant. I wanted to be adored because I had that kind of love to give. And I wanted to get as well as give. I wanted to be also in a partnership where I was no longer the codependent caretaker of another person as much as the two of us were in it together, and that I would have her back and she would have mine. And I feel like, yeah, I've achieved that. And so
he's achieved it.
I'm supremely happy right now, ladies and gentlemen. And I am really happy. But the message to the audience would be, if he can do it, he's not that different from the rest of us, then anybody can do it.
So it sounds like you were then more looking at what you needed and then having the courage to follow through with that. And you weren't being like, you met a perfect woman who's great in all these things, all these other ways, but then she can't fulfill this need for you. You wouldn't continue on the relationship. You were letting people go left and right.
Oh, when you're writing the biography of my life, I'm going to love that because you make me sound like I'm so smart and making great decision after great decision, onward and upward. And the reality is, I stumbled frequently along the way. I made many mistakes, and many old mistakes I repeated. And
so it takes sometimes to do the lesson over and over again.
Yeah, and I had zero guidance. Nobody was helping me figure things out. And I didn't really even understand myself initially. So I started off the journey with thinking, oh, I just want to take care of her. And then it was like years later when I realized, oh, oops, I have needs too. I am human also. And then, but I did want love, and I wanted a significant connection in love. And I think having made so many mistakes, I would say my decision making sometimes was guided by my thoughtful consideration, but often it was guided by circumstance, by chance, because I got dumped plenty of times too. So, I think I stumbled and bumbled my way into what I needed. And that's really, for me, my motivation for even talking about this. I don't want other people to have to go through what I went through. And if other people have gone through what I went through, I still want to share enough that they can, reduce that painful part of their history to a minimum and learn, oh, it's okay for me to have needs. Oh, it's okay for me to have requirements of my mate. Oh, I can make some changes. I could start talking about things in a different way. And but I never heard any of these conversations myself um, before learning it the hard way.
So you don't believe that people have to go through pain to get the thing that they want? Like,
I think pain is inevitable in this life. I think every spiritual leader would agree with that. But I also think misery is optional. So yeah, every high school student who's ever had his heart broken has gone through pain. But to stay with someone who is not right for you, that would be a lot of misery, even when, as intelligent as you are, you should have figured that out way back there.
And do you think how soon do you think people could figure that out? Like or do you think people figure it out? Like, to me, in my background, I saw some of this stuff, the misery, but then I also kind of just accepted it as part of being in a relationship. So
Yes.
like, people can be like, oh, you're trying to achieve something that is impossible to achieve, this perfection in relationship. Or it's like there's going to be some misery. So if you just accept that there's going to be some misery, you just kind of do that. But I feel like it's recognizable fairly early on. Is that something that you would agree with? Like, within the first 6 months, I think you'd have a decent.
But as is, I hope, obvious to everyone, I'm just a man, and I have this ego, and it was really hard for me to admit, oops, boy, did I make a mistake about something that's so important as a first marriage. And I used to panic as a therapist. I used to panic when my clients would tell me they were getting married to someone I knew was abusive, or I knew was unprepared, utterly unprepared. I mean, not just a little unprepared, but utterly unprepared. And I've relaxed over the years because I know that for a lot of us, divorce is part of the spiritual journey. It's that overwhelming realization, I have made such an utter fool of myself. I have made such a big mistake. I need to figure this out and do better, because I do not want to repeat this supremely painful episode.
So if someone comes to you and so if I'm a patient of yours and I say, hey, I'm getting married to Rebecca, and all about my relationship with her, and I know she's, let's say something obvious, like I know she's an alcoholic. Yeah. And I'm just saying, it's fine. We love each other.
But I love her, and she doesn't always drink like that. And I really think she's going to get over it.
And you just let them, you just let them go through with it.
Well, I speak up, and I think I have an obligation to say hard things to my clients, because they're paying me and I'm supposed to be helpful and informative, but I'm not there to argue with them. I can inform somebody, yes, that will never work. Or I can say something even more diplomatic, like, well, she's been sober 2 weeks. And really, if you're interested in establishing a firm foundation for a belief that she could be in a successful relationship with you, I think you need stronger evidence. Well, what are you saying? Well, look, what about just dating her as she's learning to be sober for the next year or two, and seeing if she's enjoyable as a sober person, because we don't know what she's like as a sober person. You may find that she doesn't like you. The new person she's becoming may not like you. So whether you like her or she likes you or not, that could change quite a bit. And right now, you just don't know. So a lot of my clients have a hard time deferring gratification, and they go ahead and get married. And I used to be very emotionally distraught over that.
You would get like you failed, or you just feeling just like,
I think it was out of empathy because I know what it's like to be miserable in a marriage.
and you just,
And I just thought, okay, well, we all need the lesson we need, and I can let go of that. And sometimes I'm lucky, and I'll meet the same two people later, and they'll come back asking for some help, and maybe they're open-minded. But the old joke about how many therapists does it take to change a light bulb? Well, only one, but the light bulb has to want to be changed.
yeah,
So much of life is about timing, right? So if people show up in my office, but they're not really open to change,
yeah,
that's really, they're not really supposed to be in my office.
all right,
I mean, maybe they're supposed to be in my office so I can say, hey, you're not really open to change. You should save your money and come back when you are more open. I hope your life goes well. But
how often do you get clients like that, would you say?
I think a lot of people try to say, they don't like to admit they're not open. So they'll say, no, I'm really open. And the follow-up question is, are you open to being wrong about what you're thinking right now? And I get a lot of people, especially men, I'm sorry to say, who say, no, I'm not. I don't think I am wrong, and I'm not open to being wrong. Well, that's going to make it hard to change.
And why do men have that? Is that?
And my experience has been that men believe or conflate competency with lovability. And that if they're not competent at a given thing, that they're not really lovable.
Okay.
So that they're somehow cutting themselves off at the knees with her if they admit, I really don't know what I'm doing. Like if I admit, I have erectile dysfunction. If I admit, I never feel loved. If I admit, I don't know how to be kind to you. If I admit any of those kinds of things that are big disclosures, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it takes some real guts for a man to own that. I admit that I treat you badly. I admit that I drink too much. Those are hard admissions to make. And if they're not ready to admit that, I can continue to try to form a therapeutic bond so we can work together. I can share more of my own abject failures, giving them maybe a model of permission that it's okay to be flawed, that you're still lovable, even if you're flawed. But not everybody is ready to accept that.
Yeah.
There are a lot of us men who really believe that our competency is what attracts and retains women's attention. And admitting that I failed is admit that I'm not lovable anymore.
Yeah.
I'm no longer her hero. I am a loser, to quote a great president. So
And weak.
I'm weak. I'm a loser. I'm a failure. But ironically, it's in the honesty and courage it takes to admit failure that we often find a renewal of love. Because, now our mate can relax because the two of us are dealing with reality now. To say, no, I don't have a drinking problem, when it's very obvious I do after 3 DUIs in the last 2 years. Once the other person, the drunk, can admit that they have a problem with drinking, well, now we can all relax a little bit because they accept that this is a problem. Well, it works that way with any behavior. If I'm abusive, if I'm controlling, which is another form of abuse, right? If I'm lazy and I'm letting my partner do all the work. Anytime I can admit these things, we can now work on it. But I can't work on any aspect of my life or my marriage that I can't admit is a problem.
So do you think it's about like people on this thing being like, oh, I'm going through the spiritual experience with this person? It's like they just can't admit to themselves or have the courage to have the conversation they need to have with their partner to remedy the situation, resolve the conflict. So then you're no longer in that realm of suffering and misery.
Well, I think for a lot of people, men and women are writing checks that their body can't cash over time. So my spirituality, my religion, my belief system keeps saying, oh, this is part of the journey. This is part of the journey. I need to hang in there. Except on the back end, I'm getting increasingly unhappy, increasingly open to temptation, to behaving badly. Maybe my bad behavior is limited to affairs, or maybe it crosses the line into out and out abuse. But eventually, over time, I'll become somebody I don't like, somebody I even hate, and I lose my identity. Why is that? Well, because you weren't true to your values in the first place. Part of being a spiritual being is learning to remain true to yourself. You know, like the old saying from Shakespeare out of Hamlet, to thine own self be true. Above all things. Well, that's hard. That's hard. First of all, you have to know yourself.
Yeah, you have to.
Secondly, you have to have the courage to be able to do that and face your fear of the other person throwing up their hands and saying, fine, I'm leaving you.
Yeah. Well, that first thing too, just the courage, like getting to know yourself. Like how often, I mean, again, it's like there's so much stuff people have to work through. I feel like there's so many irrational beliefs. There's so much just traumas, whatever you want to call it. I mean, whatever you professionals call it in your field. but it's, I mean, that work alone, I feel like
so hard.
Is so hard. And it also ties to the whole creating a life worth living that we talk about, because you're trying to create a life that you enjoy with your career, your hobbies, your your relationships, your platonic friendships, that sort of thing. And when you're doing that, you're learning about yourself. And then from there, you have to have the courage then when you start dating or start looking for a person, be able to like be completely honest and willing to let people go. And then you're up against your neediness, which is like, well, I haven't had a partner in 3 years. I'm ready for anything. So there's like a lot of stuff. Like it sounds really easy, but I feel like it's also really challenging.
Well, you know how there are those books out there that you can't understand until you've read it through once. You can't understand chapter 1 until you get to the end of the book.
Yeah.
And I think our own lives are like that. You know, they can only be understood in retrospect. And that's why I'm not saying, I guess the strategy is super simple, because of course, if we're new at relationships, we're amateurs by definition. We don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
And we don't have the knowledge to have the confidence so many rubes have as they go into their first relationship. I know that I know that I know, or the Lord told me that we were supposed to be together, or any of those other nonsensical phrases, to just go slow and take things for checking. There's no rush to get married. There's no rush to get into a committed relationship or to start having children, popping out babies. We could go slow. Do you enjoy dating this person? Oh, yes, very much. Well, then what's the rush of changing the setup? I mean, why not just continue dating them until you've had experiences like serious arguments? Can you name off their defects of character? Have you learned to love them despite their defects of character? There's a lot of spiritual journeying to be done, short of being in a committed relationship. And then if we have no children, if we haven't gotten married, if we haven't moved in together, then I get to just drift away. I mean, I might break up formally, but I basically get to go on with my life without a whole lot of drama. And that's why I really try to encourage people to go slow. And I will even say to date a lot. I think everyone should date at least 30 people before getting into a long-term committed relationship, because of the very thing that you brought up. This is a saying that I learned from an anthropology class, cultural anthropology class I went through in high school. He knows not England who only England knows. It is only in knowing others that I learn who I am.
Mm.
So dating is an important part of that process. Falling in love is an important part of that process. The problem is when I try in my excitement and my enthusiasm and in my neediness, I rush the process.
Yeah.
So now I'm not so much learning, I'm trying to consummate the process. And it's like that, it's as if, well, if I don't go quickly, she might get away.
Yeah.
Somebody else
Someone
might
else
pick
could
up
take
her
it, yeah.
option.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got to remember what those used car salesmen always say. Always be closing, ABC. That's the mantra. And I would say, no, the mantra is more switching from ABC to NBC.
Mm.
Never be closing.
Mm.
Because always maintain an open mind. You could be wrong about the most cherished, deeply held beliefs. And if you haven't gone through that experience yet, believe me, you will.
Yeah.
Because it's going to happen because you're human, you're flawed. And to say the opposite is to say, no, every single belief that I cherish, I'm absolutely right.
Mm.
Actually, it's not widely known, but I do know the mind of God.
Yeah.
And he has revealed all things to me that I know. Well, only the most egotistical believer or spiritual follower would hold that belief.
Yeah.
I was talking to a Mormon client recently who said that he belonged to a local stake, I believe they're called. I might have the language wrong, but he was attending a church service where the young people were encouraged to go to that one service, people in his age group, and dating was encouraged. And I just thought that just makes so much sense. What a smart thing for any church to promote.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of religions would say, well, but you can never marry outside the faith.
Yeah.
Well, okay, that's where I would break, because just as sexual intimacy doesn't depend on us having identical genitalia, nor does spiritual intimacy. So if you really want to get to know somebody and learn how to accept people for who they are and where they are, date anybody and learn how accepting you really are, or how accepting you are not.
Yeah. I want to go back to the closing thing. So say if you were dating someone and then you didn't do the closing, and then like
just remained open-minded.
But the person did get then picked up and swept away
by another.
Would you just say, well, then she wasn't that into you, or he wasn't that into you at that point?
I would have to, and I would also have to say the other theory is they may have been so needy, there was no way that they could have gone forward with me, which is another way of saying the same thing you just said. Because they weren't so much into me as they were looking to get those emotional needs met, and they had to marry somebody.
Yeah.
And I was that guy. I've been that guy before, where I just was so unhappy with being alone, and I wanted an end to the loneliness. When actually the solution there is for me to learn how to love the pleasure of my own company and continue dating. But until someone has learned the pleasure of their own company and has developed that life worth living, they're really not free of that conflict of interest where they can make a rational decision.
What about someone who's like, it's a job, it's a financial thing, or like they have kids and they're just like, being a single parent's hard, or like...
Oh, you mean like a single person, but they're in a really undesirable situation?
Or if they're dating, like say it's like a single parent and the pressure on them to maybe fulfill some of those needs may be higher than the single person, or is it just like, or is the playing field level and it's just like you just have to do that internal work to get to that point, and there shouldn't be like, because it's like, oh, these kids are so much work. I would like to have a partner to like help me balance that out.
Well, that could be true. And it could also be true I can patiently be working my way through it.
Okay.
Two things can be true at the same time, right? And so I think I want everybody listening to this to know I was that parent too. I was a single parent with children when I was dating. And my current wife happened to be a single parent also. and both of us were doing our best and succeeding in taking care of things financially. And I think the alternative there is if you're not, that means, okay, but you were an incompetent parent and an incompetent self-caring adult. So now you're going to bring somebody in as a financial buffer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's your prescription for a long, happy relationship, is getting a bump in your income from somebody else's wages. That's a horrible basis for a marriage, isn't it?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I've never been in the situation of that, and I just feel like some people like it's like I don't like their ability to think rationally, I think, is overshadowed by, I mean, even housing, for instance, like how expensive things are. It's like that pressure to like, how am I going to make it through another week? Or people living paycheck to paycheck. It's like, so I get it. It's like I understand the difficulty of it.
Yeah,
but
it's painful and it's hard.
Yeah.
It's, to use a new verb created by younger generations, adulting is hard.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah.
It's really hard. And yet, if I'm not at that level of competency as an adult where I can take care of myself, then I'm really not ready for an adult relationship because I'm not yet an adult.
Yeah.
And that's something that it's very discouraging to realize that in hindsight. It's so many parents tell their young people, their children, you're too young to be getting married. It's not really an age thing. It's not about chronology or when was your birth date, in the calendar. It's really about developmental achievements. Are you really an adult? Because if you're really an adult, your parents won't be paying for your college education. And it's okay to have your parents pay for your college education. It's okay to be dependent on your parents through that experience. I'm not trying to shame anybody who's going through that or who has the good fortune of having parents who are able to do that for their children. But what I'm saying is you're still a dependent. You are not an independent adult.
Yeah.
So the idea of getting married before you are a truly self-supporting adult, that makes no sense whatsoever if you're trying to have an adult relationship.
So it's like this adult default kind of thing. It's like, how would you define being an adult? Like taking care of yourself, understanding your needs.
Well, you're not going to understand your needs without some more life experience, right?
Okay.
But to be an adult has to include, at the very least, I'm taking care of my own self. I have my own apartment. I have my own house, or I have my own cabin in the woods, or whatever it is. I'm able to pay my way as I go through. And, this whole business of dating, I don't think dating has to cost an arm and a leg. But if I'm not able to afford taking a woman out for a cup of coffee because, I just don't have any money, that's a problem. And if I don't have the money to, depending on what town you live in, or, out here in the West where I live, car ownership is sort of a requirement for most people because it's really hard to get around. There's just not adequate mass transit.
Yeah.
And the same thing I think is true of having one's own place. You can't tell me you're an adult, but you're still living at home with mom. You can live at home with mom or grandma or whoever it is and date, because you could date even while you're in high school. So dating is not so much the issue, but please don't tell me you're an adult ready to get married.
Yeah.
Because who's gonna be paying the bills? It's like starting a business while being so woefully undercapitalized that you couldn't withstand more than a month of getting your startup going.
Yeah.
Most businesses take a few months or even a few years to get going.
Yeah.
And too many people start off marriage with the idea, two can live as cheaply as one or more cheaply.
Yeah.
And it'll be okay. I can get a job at the local fast food place.
Mm-hmm.
Or it'll be okay because my mom still, pays for my college.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not ready for that adult relationship yet.
Even my last relationship, I remember like, yeah, we can move in together, it'd be cheaper, we could save money on rent, and then like doing that math. But I shouldn't even be entertaining that. I mean,
Right.
probably.
I mean, you could, if you have your own apartment
Uh-huh.
or she has her own place,
Yeah.
you can certainly be adults enough to spend the night or to,
Mm-hmm.
have one another over for dates or for, watching a movie or having dinner together. But that's like playing house when
Mm-hmm.
you're, 8 years old. You can have a Barbie dream house,
Yeah.
and you can bring Ken over and Barbie can entertain Ken. It's rehearsal for the main event,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't indicate readiness.
Yeah. So are you saying like, rather than love is a spiritual test, it's more of like love is about becoming an adult so you could kind of burn off all this kind of irrational beliefs and
Naivete,
neediness in order to have a relationship that doesn't have all these problems that the majority of relationships have. And you're kind of like going to a state of bliss as far as I'm looking at this technology. And it's like, if you want to have and achieve the highest functioning, most loving relationship, this is kind of the recipe. And it's not spirit or God that's going to lead you there. It's growing up,
That's funny.
like figuring out your needs and all the stuff we've been talking about. Would you say that is where you think about it or how you think about it?
Well, I would only say that to those listening who are thinkers.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not a thinker, then of course the Lord will guide you.
Yeah.
But for those who are thinking, I think you want to do some things that would maybe boost your odds of success, reduce your odds of failure. I do think love is a test, but it's a test of me. Was I competent? Was I humble enough to admit that I could have been wrong? Was I patient enough to really wait and perform my due diligence? It's a test, all right, but maybe not the test that a lot of people say that it is.
Yeah, so it's almost like an internal spirituality, which is the deepest spirituality, at least from what I've seen, that you could go. It's a spiritual process inside of you, and you loving yourself, respecting yourself,
being wise enough to choose appropriately. I like the Guttman Institute, and the Guttmachers are a great couple who do amazing research. But I do disagree with them on a couple of issues. One, they say, well, only 30% of the conflicts between couples can be resolved.
Okay, you don't believe that, right?
I absolutely don't believe.
You believe everything can be, right?
Well, if you throw two people together at random, I think 30% is about the right number. But I'm talking about making an intelligent choice after you've evaluated the other person, you've done your due diligence, you've really gotten to know them, and you're not finding out 3 weeks in that they're a drug addict, or you're not finding out that, oh, they're incapable of loving behavior.
Yeah.
You want to find that out well ahead of time. And that's why I think, so many couples are afraid of arguing. And but arguing is, again, a spiritual test. Can this person, first of all, have the courage to confront me when she thinks I'm wrong? Can I have the humility and the tolerance to accept being confronted? Does she have the savoir-faire, the technology in her mind to confront me in an abuse-free manner? And do we as a couple have the ability to resolve conflict in a way that works for both of us? Well, I don't know any couples who are doing that mindfully.
Yeah.
And that's why we're talking about this. If you want to have only 30% of your conflicts be resolvable, well, then forget everything I'm saying. But if you like dating the person you're dating, or you like the process of getting to know others and seeing who would be good for you or not, then take your time and see, how much you learn about yourself and about the things that, ooh, I didn't know that I was so needy for affection. I've annoyed so many of my girlfriends. I guess I need to find, are there any women out there who are affectionate on a scale of 1 to 10 at a 8? And sure enough, there are.
Yeah.
And sure enough, there are women who are compatible at so many issues. I'm a morning person. My first marriage, my former wife was a night owl. I was an introvert. She was an extrovert. I mean, there was like virtually no continuum where we weren't at opposite ends from one another. That doesn't mean I didn't love her.
Yeah.
But I really didn't know her well to love her well. I didn't know her well, so I couldn't love her well. And that was a spiritual test. And shame on me for not getting to know her better because I was so needy. Well, but I hate to say that I failed that spiritual test. I would say, no, it was a test, like so many tests, where I come away from it having learned something.
But it's recognizing that lesson after the experience.
Yes. Not, oh, she was a terrible human being.
Yeah.
And I'm a good human being. And so I just need to keep looking for a good human being.
Yeah.
But no, we all need to be a little more thoughtful, a little wiser, a lot more humble about the process. Because most of us, I think, are far more careful checking out consumer reports about our next car purchase than we are about thoughtfully considering who our next partner is going to be.
Yeah. We'll just leave it up to God. That's what I say.
And that's the mic drop right there. I think we should leave it up to the invisible, untouchable, silent voice in the sky, that invisible man in the sky, to guide us somehow. All right.
All right.
I'm talking.
Yeah, you too, Steve.